There's a moment, a threshold, where everything is stripped away. When the walls you've built crumble, when love turns cold, trust shatters, and even your own reflection becomes a stranger. That moment is when a man becomes dangerous, not because he seeks destruction, but because he has already been destroyed. A man with nothing to lose is no longer shackled by fear. You see, most people live their lives in quiet negotiation with fear. They're afraid of failing, of being judged, of losing status, love, comfort, or control. These fears keep them in line. Fear builds the cage. But once a man has lost everything he values, when he's been broken, betrayed, forgotten, he no longer fears loss. Because what more can be taken from him? That's when something primal awakens. No longer looking for approval, no longer asking for permission, no longer flinching at threats or bending under the weight of expectations. He becomes singular in focus, raw in intent, no distraction, no hesitation. There is a terrifying purity to a man who has nothing to protect, only something to prove. He doesn't move out of hope, he moves out of defiance. He walks forward, not because he believes in miracles, but because retreat is no longer an option. Every scar becomes armor, every mistake becomes a weapon. The world tried to bury him, and now it must deal with what it created. Because when you've already walked through hell, fire doesn't scare you anymore. Let me be clear, this is not about chaos for chaos's sake. This is not glorifying destruction. This is about transformation. It's about the kind of rebirth that doesn't come with flowers and songs, but with ashes and resolve. It's about the forge, not the flame. The man who walks out of ruin is not the same one who walked in. He has stared into the abyss and found something staring back, himself, unfiltered and unafraid. The truth is, the most dangerous man is not the one who strikes first, but the one who stands last. The one who, when the dust settles, is still standing because he had no other choice. Because surrender was never in his vocabulary. Because he realized that if the world wasn't going to give him a place, he would carve one out with his bare hands. This man becomes a force of nature, not reckless, but relentless. Every no fuels him. Every failure sharpens him. Every betrayal hardens him. He builds not because he dreams, but because survival demands it. He climbs not because he sees the stars, but because the pit behind him is too deep to return to. Purpose becomes his oxygen. Vision becomes his vengeance. And let me tell you something that will make many uncomfortable. Sometimes, rock bottom is the best thing that ever happens to a man. Because it's there, in the silence, the darkness, the suffocating weight of being utterly alone, that he finds clarity. In that place, distractions die, lies die. The version of himself that bowed to fear dies, and in its place, something new rises. A will that can't be negotiated with, a resolve that can't be bribed, a fire that doesn't flicker in the wind, it feeds on it. A man with nothing to lose becomes unstoppable because his power no longer comes from what he has. It comes from what he's willing to endure, what he's willing to fight for when there is no promise of victory, when everything seems lost and he fights anyway. That's where greatness lives, not in comfort, not in applause, but in the quiet, brutal war of one man versus his fate. And here's the irony. Once he becomes that man, the world begins to take notice. Not because he asks it to, not because he needs it, but because power like that can't be ignored. He starts to rebuild, not to impress, but to conquer. Not to reclaim what was lost, but to create something that can never be taken from him again. He builds an empire from his ashes. So if you're listening to this right now, and you feel broken, betrayed, forgotten, good. Stay there, feel it, sit with it, let it rip you apart. Because what emerges on the other side will be something the world isn't ready for. Don't run from the pain. Let it remake you. Don't beg for mercy. become the storm. Don't wait for someone to save you. Be the savior you were looking for. You don't need their approval. You don't need their permission. You don't even need their understanding. All you need is that flicker inside that refuses to die. That part of you that's still alive, even under the weight of everything that's tried to kill it. Feed it. Because once you realize you've got nothing left to lose, you become the most powerful version of yourself the world has ever seen. And when that version rises, there is no stopping you.